So here we are on Holy Saturday. Jesus has been executed as a criminal, and before nightfall on Good Friday, his body has had to be disposed of. Had it not been for the generosity of Joseph of Arimathea offering the use of a tomb nearby, it would most likely have ended up being buried in a common tip. In reality, there wasn't much time for the burial to take place ahead of the Sabbath rest, and all of Jesus' followers had scattered, except for the women who had faithfully followed him all the way from Galilee. There was no choice but to quickly wind a linen cloth around his body and then get it into the tomb before sunset. Having seen where Jesus' body was laid, the women would just have to go home to prepare the embalming spices and perfumes and bring them back after the Sabbath. There was no choice but to wait. In the story of Holy Saturday, and echoed in the couplets of Ecclesiastes 3, there's a reminder that there is a time for everything and that life's seasons have to take their course. The women may have an important task to do in the preparation of the spices, but waiting, and rest in particular, is vital. How hard must it have been to have thought of resting at such a time of grief? Yet Jesus' words in the upper room in John 16:12-33 speak of grief turning to joy, the kind of joy that can even eradicate memories about the pain of childbirth, because the miracle of a child being born into the world has the potential to far outweigh a mother's anguish. In the upper room, the disciples were warned that despite the prospect of longer-term rejoicing because they would see Jesus again, the reality would be that they would all scatter, run away home, and leave him alone. And indeed, it's the women who travel with Jesus as far as the tomb who keep hold of the seeds of Jesus' words when the disciples choose to disperse. Like Eta, in spite of it all, they are prepared to have called out in them again a willingness to love and to serve. And of course, Eta knew what it was like to have to relinquish control and surrender to his circumstances. In around 662, having established a monastery at Ripon at the request of the king, later, when the same king changed his mind, he was issued with an ultimatum to either follow the Roman way or to leave, which he did. And in 685, when Cuthbert refused to leave Lindisfarne to become Bishop of Hexham, it was Eta who stepped in with a willing heart. Of course, when we consider the waiting and rest that was required on Easter Saturday, it does make us reflect on this season of pandemic and what letting go and waiting in hope has looked like for us. Right at the beginning of lockdown, like many, I rediscovered some local walks to aid my daily recreation. And one particular joy was the rediscovery of a disused railway line that is raised up and runs across a beautiful expanse of moorland near my house. Quite early on, just after Easter last year in fact, I came across a tree that was hanging off the edge of the track at a 45-degree angle, with its root ball exposed. Quite honestly, it looked dead. But there was something about it that made me hover there. Partly the vista it enjoyed across the moors, and partly the beauty of the tree's amazing network of broken roots, clinging to the landscape against all the odds, not least the extreme weather of a moorland environment, including high winds mercilessly whipping across the terrain. It started to mirror for me some of the feelings that I'd been having about being in lockdown, as well as becoming a newfound sacred space for prayer. I often marvelled about how it seemed to be rooted enough to hang on, despite everything. And then, in late April, something truly amazing happened. Suddenly, half of the tree budded up and sprang into life. The other half remained lifeless. I couldn't believe it. The unexpected joy of it, in the middle of an on-hold period in my life, and indeed in everybody else's, seemed to speak massively of hope. just like these Holy Saturday women who would later return to find the resurrected Christ. It felt like God was calling out in me again a willingness to love and serve, and in fact, that was enough. It made me think about how times of waiting and apparent dormancy have the capacity to bring huge moments of unexpected joy and blessing. Waiting, pausing, noticing. Waiting for life to restart, for each emerging guideline from the government keeping us apart, enforced in our isolation, desolation, all meaning pushed backwards as we wait for our instructions. Wash your hands, count the seconds, up to 20. Waiting as the high street closes, transport freezes, the space between us starts increasing. We can't hug or touch or comfort like we used to. So unusual. Above all, wash your hands, count the seconds, wait. Waiting as statistics mount up, you know it's serious when the people ill and dying, once remote, soon denote your friends and neighbours, those you know and can't go to console with simple touch and love. Waiting in your isolation, just in case you're infected, or through being connected have passed something on, culpable, not invincible. Waiting for a restart button, for your children, for your job, though perhaps now jobless, homeless, feeling hopeless, waiting. Through confusion, anger, present danger spilling out onto streets and into Congress buildings, statues smashed and statutes broken, and still we're waiting. When will normal come again? Pausing. I know I need to, intentionally. Press the button. Reconstruct a rhythm to reboot the way my mind is going. Running off in all directions, needing to be stilled. Pausing. Starting to be present to the presence of the space I live in, now must grieve in, find some joy in. And the one who calls. In a whisper. Pausing. And once the centre's silenced, I can listen. Now I am noticing. Buds on branches, diamond bird tracks on fresh snow, the wild beauty of moorland, the permeability of a once rugged jacket in rain. The simple joys of puppyhood, and surprising first encounters with, among other things, falling leaves, puddles, earthworms, bramble bushes, hen coops. Noticing Christ in the stranger, a new kind of hope and generosity. Captain Tom, frontline workers, the Tesco's delivery driver, ordinary heroes. Noticing Christ in me, a replanting, rebalancing, realignment, dormant seeds in a quiet earth, hidden. And then today, this cave, and in letting go, hope of new life and transformation. So, I want to end with another story of waiting that's happened in my life. Many of you may or may not know that I'm a songwriter and musician. And about 25 years ago, I was given a word about using my giftings in secular venues. Our band's entire set was always original music and lyrics were issues-based rather than overtly Christian, with the exception of one song, which metaphorically was a call to follow Christ through adverse times. It was this song that we always finished our set with, and on the occasion that I'm recalling here, the band was booked to play a big pub venue in Darlington in the northeast of England. As usual, the first half of the set started about 9 o'clock and went on for about 45 minutes. However, when we finished it, the landlord requested that we began our second set at 11:15. That was a bit of a shock to us because we had hoped to be all done and packed up, ready to go by 11 o'clock, especially because it was Holy Saturday night. However, the landlord was adamant. He explained that he had an extended licence because he had a functions room above the main bar, and for that reason he always caught the late trade after the other pubs in the area emptied around 11 o'clock. Needless to say, we went along with him, and obediently we waited. Sure enough, just after 11 o'clock, the room started to fill up. In fact, it became absolutely packed. A few folk, who were slightly worse for wear, shall we say, started asking if we did any Oasis covers. We explained that we didn't, because we were an originals band, but there was a bit of a part of me at that moment that wished that we did know some, because this crowd seemed to have the potential to be particularly rowdy. Anyway, we cracked on with the set and got to the final song, which is called The Thorn. It has a hook line of lyrics which are "Follow me," and when I got to the second chorus I realised that there were a lot of people in the bar who were joining in and singing it with me. As we hit the final chorus, the whole room seemed to be singing along, and as I looked up at the bar, I noticed the clock behind it, which was just flipping over onto midnight at the very moment that I looked at it. To be honest, the hair on the back of my neck was literally standing on end. I realised that we were now into Easter Sunday morning, but more than that, I felt that God was telling me that this was the moment, and that it was this audience that the song had been intended for. Needless to say, it did then feel that it had been worth the wait. May your time of waiting over this Easter time, along with mine, bring unexpected gifts and joys, and call out in us again a willingness to love and to serve.